If you're in a family enterprise, at some point you will hear this question: should we bring on a board director or just an advisor? It sounds like a technical distinction, but it is not. In fact, choosing the wrong role at the wrong time is one of the most common and costly governance mistakes I come across in family enterprises. Today, I want to walk you through the real difference between a director and an advisor, why families often confuse the two, and most importantly, how to decide which role your enterprise actually needs right now. This is not about titles, but it is about accountability, risk, and long term stewardship. Here is what typically happens. A family business hits a point of growth, transition, or complexity, such as a liquidity event, perhaps sibling partnerships, next gen transition and involvement, increased leverage, or operational risk. And the instinct typically is let's add an advisor. But what the enterprise actually needs is governance and not guidance. Or the opposite happens. A family appoints a formal board director when, in fact, they may not be ready for additional oversight, formal decision rights, through accountability. In both scenarios, a friction or confusion may sometimes be created that can cause real damage to the business or the family enterprise. So let's define the roles more closely. What a board director does is that he or she has formal authority and fiduciary responsibility. This particular role includes oversight of strategy and risk, accountability to the entire enterprise, not just individuals, voting rights on key decisions, and the legal duty of care and loyalty. A director is not there to just help when asked. They are there to ask the hard questions, challenge assumptions, and ensure the enterprise is run in the best long term interests of the owners and the stakeholders. This role requires structure, clear governance documents, and a willingness by the family to be held accountable. And that last part is often underestimated. In contrast, what a board advisor does, it's slightly different or fundamentally different, even I would say. An advisor provides insight, experience, perspective. They do not have voting rights or authority or fiduciary duties. They operate by invitation and not obligation. Advisors can be especially valuable when the enterprise needs additional expertise but not oversight, when the family wants more flexibility when it comes to decision but additional insight. Trust is high, but formality is not yet appropriate. So you can think of advisors as strategic sounding boards and not necessarily governance. They do influence decisions, but they do not own them. And so here are the key differences between the two roles that truly matter. Authority, directors decide, and advisors recommend. When it comes to accountability, directors are accountable, whether that's comfortable or not. Advisors may disengage if their role no longer fits or is needed. In terms of risk management, directors are responsible for protecting the downside. Advisors do help you think through the downside and the upside, but they don't have fiduciary duties per se. When it comes to enterprise readiness, directors require governance, maturity, and system, and advisors allow for governance to evolve. If you confuse these, you can either create false comfort or, even worse, unnecessary tension. So, when do you need a director? Your enterprise likely needs a board director if ownership is fragmented across various family branches and companies, the business carries material leverage or operational risk, a liquidity event is approaching or perhaps has recently occurred, the next generation is stepping into leadership or in their trustee roles. Decisions are being delayed or avoided due to perhaps some family dynamics. In short, when the enterprise risk exceeds the individual judgment, you may be better suited with a director. When advisor may be a better fit or a better choice is when the founder still controls decisions. The enterprise is early in its governance journey. Perhaps you need a specialized expertise, not oversight. The family wants to test the structure without locking it in, perhaps test the advisor before inviting them to be a director. They effectively act as a bridge on the governance front and not necessarily the final destination. And so here is the risk if you don't get this right. When families rely on advisors and they need directors, for example, accountability erodes, risk accumulates quietly, decision making becomes personality versus structure driven, and when conversely, when families appoint directors too early, trust breaks, resistance builds due to the accountability features I talked about, governance may get lost, and both outcomes can actually weaken the desired results. So, if you're at a crossroad, ask these three questions. Are we seeking input or oversight? Are we prepared to accept accountability and not just advice? Is our biggest risk today strategic complexity or governance failure? So, answers to these questions will point you clearly towards a director or an advisor. Titles do not protect family enterprises. Clarity does. The strongest families do not rush governance, but they do not avoid it either. If the topic resonates, you are likely already sensing that your enterprise is evolving. And when it does, the question is not who should we bring in? Rather, the question is what role does our enterprise truly need? Share one takeaway that you found helpful in the comments below. And if you found this helpful, I invite you to subscribe to Family Enterprise Perspectives for more conversations on governance, risk, and long term capital stewardship. And lastly, if you'd like to continue the conversation more privately, feel free to connect with me one on one. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me today, and I'll see you in the next video.